Today, we're diving into something called curriculum intent. Basically, it's the master plan, the foundational blueprint that decides everything students learn in school.
Seriously, have you ever really stopped to think about how that works? How does a huge idea like education get boiled down into a single lesson on, say, a Tuesday morning? Well, it's not magic, that's for sure. It's actually a really carefully designed process, and we're going to walk through it together step by step. So, every good plan needs a destination, right? A curriculum is no different. It all has to start with a really clear direction for learning. And this direction, well, that's what curriculum designers call intent. Okay, so what is curriculum intent? It's pretty much the collection of all the whys behind the teaching. It's the purpose statement that guides everyone, teachers, students, you name it, making sure that all the content, all the activities, and all the tests are pointed in the exact same direction. You know, to make this crystal clear, let's use an analogy that I think really helps. Imagine building a house. You don't just start throwing up walls, right? First, you start with a big vision. That's the aim. Then that vision gets turned into detailed blueprints. Those are the goals. And finally, those blueprints get broken down into step-by-step instructions for the builders, and those are the objectives. So let's start with that big picture vision. We're going to start at the highest, most abstract level you can imagine. This is the vision for the entire educational structure. These are the aims. Aims are those really big aspirational ideas. They're not about a specific subject, but more about the kind of person a society hopes to create through its education system. You can think of them as these grand statements of societal values that might span a student's entire school career. Just look at how broad these aims are. Develop moral character, or become critical thinkers. These aren't things you can just check off a list in a single lesson. No way. They are the long-term guiding stars for the whole educational system. Okay, so that's the 30,000-foot view, but you can't hand that to a school principal and say, go for it, right? We need to get a little more practical. And that brings us down to the next level, goals. These are the blueprints for our educational house. So goals are where those big societal aims get translated into actual actionable plans for schools and school districts. If the aim is to, say, prepare students for vocational efficiency, a goal would start to describe how a school system is actually going to do that. And this is where you can really see the difference. Look at these examples. Develop skills in reading, writing, speaking, and listening. See, it's much more specific than a broad aim, but it's still not a daily lesson plan. It's a clear target for a school to actually work toward. All right, now we zoom in to the most detailed level, the one that teachers and students are working with every single day. We're talking about the specific step-by-step instructions for building. We call these objectives. So here's the crucial part. Objectives are all about observable change. They have to answer the question, after this lesson, what will a student be able to do that they couldn't do before? They're the direct link between the plan and the student's actions. But wait, not all objectives are created equal. We can split them into two main types. First, you have general or unit objectives. These set the stage for a whole topic, like understanding fractions. Then you have specific or instructional objectives. These are the daily measurable tasks, like constructing a right-angled triangle. It's kind of like the difference between the chapter title in a textbook and the step-by-step instructions inside that chapter. And this table here, well, it puts it all together perfectly. It's a great little cheat sheet. As you move from aims on the left to goals and then to objectives on the right, you can see how everything gets more and more specific. The language gets more technical, the time frame shrinks from years down to a single lesson, and the source goes from broad society down to the individual teacher. This is the entire hierarchy in one quick snapshot. So why do we spend all this time writing good objectives? Well, because they do three absolutely critical jobs. First, they tell everyone, students and teachers, where they're going. Second, they give us a logical foundation to choose our content and activities. And third, and this is huge, they give us a clear way to assess whether any learning has actually happened. And that right there leads to the million-dollar question. It's great to have a plan, a blueprint, and all these instructions, but how do you check the quality of the work? How do we actually measure success? The answer is in our final concept, curriculum outcomes. This is where we measure the results and see if our beautiful blueprint actually became a reality. Think of outcomes as the tangible proof of learning. They are statements that describe what a student should know or be able to physically demonstrate at the end of the whole process. They are the observable, measurable, and accessible signs that the objectives have actually been met. This table shows that connection perfectly. You start with a general objective, like develop practical skills in researching primary sources. Okay, but what does that look like? Well, the outcome statements on the right tell you. The student can find sources, they can analyze documents, they can connect events, and they can present what they found. It's the difference between saying you can cook and actually putting a delicious meal on the table. So there you have it, the entire blueprint for learning, from that grand societal vision of aims all the way down to the measurable results of outcomes. And once you understand this structure, you can start to think about creating really effective education. Which leads me to a final thought. If you were the one holding the pen, what would be the most important aim you would write for the next generation? For anyone who wants to dive deeper, the key sources for this explainer are on your screen now. Thanks so much for watching.